Welcome to The Explainer. You know, in any big project, there's always this critical pivot point. That moment where you stop just describing a problem and start to really, truly understand it. That right there is the analyze phase of DMAIC. And today, we're going to break it down consultant style.
So let's start with the big question, the one that really gets to the heart of it all. Are you just putting a Band-Aid on a symptom, or are you actually curing the disease? See, it's easy to patch up a problem you can see right on the surface. But if you don't dig down and find that deep, underlying cause, I guarantee you that problem is just going to keep coming back again and again. This is why a structured analysis isn't just nice to have, it's everything.
Think about the first two phases of DMAIC, define and measure. They're all about establishing the what. What is the problem exactly, and how big is it? But the analyze phase, well, that's where the real investigation begins. We take all that great data we collected and we pivot from just observing what's going on to finally uncovering why it's happening in the first place. This is the detective work. This is where we find the truth.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First up, we'll define the mission. Then we'll survey the scene by mapping out the process. After that, we're going to line up all the suspects, every potential cause we can think of. Then comes the fun part. We analyze the evidence with cold, hard data. And finally, we'll zero in on the real culprit. It's a full-on investigation, from start to finish. Every good project, every great investigation, it all starts with a crystal-clear mission statement. So before we jump into all the tools and techniques, let's get perfectly aligned on what we're trying to do here. What does a win actually look like in the analyze phase?
Let's be really clear about this. The analyze phase is not about opinions. It's not about hunches. It's not about who has the loudest voice in the room. Its entire mission is to take the objective data you gathered in the measure phase and use it to identify and, this is the most important word, validate the real root causes. So many teams just jump to conclusions here. This phase forces you to pause and let the data make sure you're aiming at the right target.
And here's how that mission breaks down into objectives. First, we use our data to funnel down a long list of possible causes into a much shorter list of probable ones. Then, we dig even deeper to find the causes that have the biggest impact on what our customer actually cares about, those critical to quality factors, or CTQs. And the final rule, every single finding has to be backed up by statistical proof. No guessing allowed, period.
So, we know our mission. Now it's time to survey the scene. And in our world, the scene of the crime is the process itself. We have absolutely no chance of finding the source of a problem if we don't have a perfectly clear picture of how things are working or not working right now, step by step.
Our number one tool for this is process mapping. It just lays everything out visually so you can see it all at once. You start with your inputs, your X's. Then you map out every single action, one after the other. You define your final outputs, your Y's. And then, this is the crucial part, you link those critical to quality factors back to specific steps in the process. Suddenly, you can see the relationship between what you do and what you get. You can see exactly where things might be going wrong.
But here's the thing. A process map is just a drawing until you look at it through the right lens. Just mapping the steps isn't enough. The very first thing a top-tier analyst looks for is waste. And by waste, I mean any activity that eats up time and resources but adds zero value from the customer's point of view.
And these are the usual suspects, the 7 classic wastes, also known as MUDA. As you're looking at your process map, you're basically on a scavenger hunt for these things. Are we making more than we need? Is inventory just sitting there, tying up cash? Are people or machines just waiting around? Is there a bunch of unnecessary movement? Are we making defects that have to be fixed later? Are we doing more work than the customer even asked for? Is stuff being moved around too much? These things are the enemies of productivity. Okay, so we've mapped the scene, we've spotted the obvious inefficiencies. Now our investigation moves to the next stage, identifying suspects. This is all about brainstorming. The goal is to generate a massive, comprehensive list of every single potential cause of the problem we can possibly imagine.
And this is so important. This is a total mindset shift. Right now, we are not judging ideas, we're not filtering them, we are just casting the widest net possible. Every idea, it doesn't matter how small or how wild it seems, it goes on the list. The absolute worst thing you can do at this stage is to shoot down an idea too early. We need all the suspects in the lineup before we can even think about starting the interrogation.
The foundational tool here is, of course, brainstorming. This is all about divergent thinking, going as broad as you possibly can to make sure that no stone is left unturned.
Now, if you want to dig a little deeper on a specific issue that pops up,
The 5 whys technique is just genius. It's so simple. You just state the problem and you keep asking why. For instance, the machine stopped. Okay, why? Well, the fuse blew. Why did the fuse blow? Because there was an overload. Why was there an overload? You just keep going until you get past all the symptoms and you finally hit a real root cause.
So, brainstorming can get a little messy, right? You've got ideas all over the place. The fishbone diagram is how we bring some serious structure to that chaos. It helps you visually organize all those potential causes. The head of the fish is your problem, and the bones are all the different categories of causes that feed into it.
And the classic categories are often called the 6 M's. For every potential cause you think of, you ask, is this related to our methods, our machines, our manpower, the materials we use, our measurement systems, or the work environment? This framework is fantastic because it forces you to think about the problem from every possible angle, making sure you don't miss anything.
All right, we have our process map. We have our long, structured list of suspects. Now comes the most critical part of this whole investigation: analyzing the evidence. This is where we completely shift gears. We're moving away from qualitative brainstorming and into rigorous, quantitative, data-driven analysis. It's time to separate fact from fiction.
Think about it. Every potential cause we put on that fishbone diagram is really just an assumption. It's a hypothesis. So now, we use the data from the measure phase and powerful statistical tools to test each and every one of those assumptions. Does the data actually support the idea that a lack of training is causing these defects, or does it show absolutely no connection? We don't have to guess anymore. The data will tell us the truth.
The formal name for this whole process is hypothesis testing. Now, it might sound complicated, but the core idea is pretty simple. You're using a small sample of data to make a confident decision about the bigger picture. You start by assuming your suspect has no effect. We call that the null hypothesis. Then, you use your statistical tests to see if your data is strong enough to prove that initial assumption wrong.
But you have to be careful, because it's not foolproof. You can make 2 really critical mistakes. A type 1 error is basically a false alarm. You think you found a cause, but really, it's just random noise in the data. A type 2 error is a misdetection. There's a real cause there, but your analysis just fails to see it. A huge part of being a good analyst is balancing the risk between these two. Now, before you even think about running a single test, there is one thing you absolutely positively have to do. You have to understand the shape or the distribution of your data. This is totally non-negotiable. Why? Because the shape of your data determines which statistical tool you're allowed to use. Using the wrong tool is like trying to use a hammer on a screw. You're just going to get a useless or even a damaging result. So for continuous data, that's things you measure like time, temperature, or weight, you'll see distributions like these. You've got the famous bell curve or the normal distribution, but lots of processes follow these other patterns. The key isn't to memorize them all, but to know how to identify which one you're dealing with so you can pick the right tool for the job. And it's the same for discrete data, things you count, like the number of defects or the number of phone calls. You'll see a totally different set of patterns. And again, correctly identifying the pattern is the mandatory first step before you can do any kind of valid analysis. We are in the home stretch. We have used our data to prove some of our suspected causes are real and to throw out the ones that aren't. Now we get to the final section of our analysis, the most satisfying part: pinpointing the true culprit, or what we like to call the vital few. And this brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in all of process improvement. Not all root causes are created equal. Your analysis might prove that 5 or 6 different things are causing the problem, but almost always, the Pareto principle applies. You'll find that roughly 80% of your problem is caused by just 20% of the causes. Your final job in this phase is to identify that powerful, vital few 20% where your efforts are going to have the biggest bang for their buck. So, let's bring it all together. When you walk out of the analyze phase, what should you have in your hand? You should have this package right here: your detailed process map with all the waste highlighted, your complete list of all the potential causes you brainstormed, the hard data and results from your analysis, and most importantly, a short, prioritized list of the proven root causes. This is the ammunition you carry forward into the improve phase. So there it is. You've completed the investigation. You've successfully moved from what is happening to why it's happening. You've separated assumption from fact, and you have pinpointed the true source of the problem with data to back it all up. The mystery is solved. Which leaves us with the ultimate question, the one that tees up the entire next phase of DMEC. Now that you know the real cause, how are you going to fix it?